Hey guys, this is Mike from Deepwood Force of Will, coming at you with a spooky, scary Halloween special. Today, I'm bringing you guys a pretty fun Rezzard deck. This is by no means a competitive deck. I just kind of built this for the sake of building it. So, I played with this in the past. It's a really fun deck. It's super combo oriented. Again, don't expect to go to any big tournaments and win with it, but it's got some cool little merits. So, why don't we just get right into the deck with our ruler, Rezzard, the Undead Lord. Our Rezzard is a 7 kings and vampire. He J activates for 2, or judgments for 2, 1 black and 1 black, and then also for 1 black and 1 black, you can put the top 2 cards of your main deck into your graveyard. So very, not really cost efficient self-mill. And I'm sure you guys are like, why would you want to mill yourself? You'll see later. But for now, let's move over to his Jade Ruler side. So obviously this is a full art, so it's hard to read. So he comes in as a 5/5, again, 7 Kings Vampire. He comes with Natural and Perishable. When he enters your field, you can take 2 cards from your hand and place them face down in your chant standby area without paying their cost, which means that if they have a stealth or trigger effect, you can use them later on. He also gains +2/+2 for each card in your chant standby area. So if he comes in and uses his ability for 2 cards, you'll come in as a 9/9 instead of a 5/5. So it's pretty good. And then his God's Art is actually insane. It's March of Undead. Trying to translate. Anyway, it's a 6 will, which you can discount with Deathscythe. So it's 2 black and 4 colorless. You can remove any number of resonators you control from the grave. You remove any number of resonators from the grave to force both players to banish that many resonators and discard that many cards. So basically, if you remove a lot of your grave from the game, you can just wipe out both players' hands and fields. Of course, except for him, because he's not a resonator. So he's really cool. He's got a lot of really cool effects to him, and he's got some pretty interesting mechanics with other cards, but he's a very complex ruler to play. Takes a lot of time to learn the timing on him. You have to count up your graveyard to really get his effects rolling. So not an easy ruler to play, but very fun, very satisfying. Moving on to the stone deck. 4 rulers Memoria. I know that everybody's going to say, oh Mike, you said it's a fun deck, why am I playing the expensive cards? Because these things let you produce any color. That's really, really important for this deck. Because you do want to open always with, you don't just want to open with black, you want to open with as many colors as possible to get as many angles as possible, especially going into the late game. Also with those, we have 4 Magic Stone of Scorched Bales, because this is a mainly black-red deck, but it also splashes a little bit of blue, which is why we also play Magic Stone of Dark Depths. For players that are on a budget, you can substitute these Rules Memorias. You can substitute in 2 Rules Memoria for 2 more Dark Depths, and then 2 up here for Heart's Core. That's perfectly acceptable. I've done that stone lineup in the past, but Rezzard just lends himself so well to Regalia, especially because Deathscythe, his own named Regalia, recycles itself. There's almost no reason not to play the Regalia build. So if you can't afford those Rules Memorias, I can't recommend them enough. If not, they're substitutes. Moving into the main deck, we have a few Resonators. And by a few, I mean it's a bunch of Resonators, because you want to put them into the grave. 4 Prowler of Niflheim. Basically, it's a 3/3 zombie. Spooky, ooh. Again, we're sticking to the spooky theme. Basically, when he enters the board, you mill the top 2 cards of your deck. A lot of the effects in this deck do occur in the graveyard, and you get some effects based on how big your graveyard is. So having just a body that mills you instead of having to pay 2 with Rezzard and do the exact same effect is really, really nice. And Prowler definitely helps you cycle through the deck. Also keeping up with that self-mill aspect is 4 Guinevere, who banish resonators you control, again setting up the grave, draws you cards, keeping your at advantage, and discarding any cards. Because you do play some pretty high-cost cards, which are better in the graveyard. Guinevere puts them there for you. She's very good with that. And just a quick thing. Her flavor text is really spooky. She says, "Oh, I made a mistake. Please bring me another one." That's pretty spooky, because I think, I forget if there's another translation for her, but yeah, just scary cards. 2 drops, just 1 Hera. Again, Regalia are still pretty big in the metagame, so having the 1 Hera just to get that free draw, have a nice 5/5 body, she's good. She's pretty scary. She looks kind of mad at things, so I guess that's scary. And now we're moving into the spoopy package. Ooh! We got for Persephone, the Nether Empress. Persephone is a card that only triggers if your ruler is Rezzard or if your Jade Ruler is Rezzard. She's a 4-mana 7/7, not very great stats, but you won't be playing her just as a 4-mana 7/7. You'll be setting her in your chance standby area and flipping her later when your condition is met. And that condition is your Jade Ruler is Rezzard, or your ruler is Rezzard, your J/ruler, and you control 10 or more. You have 10 or more cards in your graveyard, which again, that self-mill aspect really comes in handy to fill up your grave and make it so that she's live. And when she comes into play from the chance standby area, which you will be playing her from, you can take a target resonator from your grave with total cost 4 or less and put it right into your field. So again, she's really cool. She's a quick cast speed. So if it's your opponent's turn on the end, you can flip her up if you meet her condition, get a card out of your grave, and then have a bunch of stuff to swing with on the next turn. That's one of the big reasons that stealth has gotten to where it is. So Persephone's really good, and I also put in a few cards to go along with her. Big surprise here is that I play 2 Riza and Gnome Elder. And a lot of you are thinking, Mike, what are you doing? God, it's terrible. And I'm like, yeah, it's definitely not as good as the generic Riza Melder, but I'm really trying to... This deck is more focused on Persephone. Honestly, I wanted to stick to the theme of Persephone rather than just the standard stealth package, because we all know what the standard stealth package does. It's very self-explanatory. No reason to really try and make more decks around it. I could have just made this deck a 4 Riza, 4 Melder deck, but I wanted to stick to my Persephone theme. So it's only 2 Riza. A lot of the time you won't actually be setting her face down to get the effect off. A lot of the time you want to mill her and bring her back with Persephone, because then you set another Riza from your... You bring back the Riza with Persephone from your deck, you flip up the Riza later after this Persephone's gone, pay 1,000, set another Persephone from the deck, and keep the loop going. So you can do some pretty cool loops with her. It's not great. You can set up the Persephones with them just on their own, obviously, because Riza's still very good for the fact that she flips up for basically 2 mana and gets you a free card from your deck. And then Persephone gets you more stuff, and just cycling into both of them is really cool. That's the main theme of the deck. Also on that 4-drop Dark Scale, we have 2 Lucifer. Lucifer is a really good target, just a big body with flying, and it forces your opponent to banish a Resonator. And you can do that on your opponent's turn with Persephone, bringing back him, forcing them to banish the Resonator they just put into the board. He's a lot of value and is really valuable off of the Persephone, so definitely him. 1 Arthur. Arthur's kind of interesting due to the fact that he just kind of cycles himself from the grave. He's also a mass debuff, so he's really good against Feathsing. I played him once against Crocosharks, and that turned out really well because they couldn't keep much on the board to get their big plays going. He's just kind of a big body. He buffs your own stuff up. He buffs up Persephone, which is kind of cool. And you can remove 3 Resonators from the grave to add them back to your hand. So if you've got plenty of stuff in the grave and you just need a big beater to come back into your hand, you can play him. And he's really good as a one-of. I would definitely not want to see more than one of him. He's good, but not great. And then the other 4-drop we play is Valentina, Puppet Monarch. Again, we have blue. We have the blue for her. She's a 4-drop, so Persephone can bring her back. If you bring her back on your opponent's turn, you grab something they control, and then on your next turn you can swing with it. It's a very scary card. Speaking of scary, I made sure that all these Resonators were Halloween themed. We got demons, we got zombies, we got mind control, boob smothering characters. It's really spooky. Sticking to the theme, boys. And that's the Resonator lineup. Going into the Regalia. The Regalia with the spookiest name in the entire world, and Rezzard's big Regalia, Deathscythe the Life Reaper. Makes your opponent's Jade Ruler lose and makes them unable to gain Imperishable and Swiftness. So you can kill them off forever. You can prevent them from getting too aggressive on you. You can tap it, to make your Jade Ruler gain +2/+2. If it's Rezzard, which it is, you can also gain the effect of whenever you destroy a Resonator by battle using Rezzard, you can put that card into your field under your control. And also, if you tap it, it costs 1 less to play Rezzard's God's Art. So this is where you get your big discounts for that God's Art. And if you have this card in your graveyard, you can remove 3 cards from your grave from the game to put this card back into your hand. So again, really good with big grave setups, being able to add this back, constantly have it as just kind of discard fodder. If you mill it, it's not the worst thing in the world because you can just add it back. Deathscythe's just really, really good for everything that Rezzard's doing. And it's really just a cool card. Like, it's so scary. It's got a skeleton on it. Like, it's a scythe with a skeleton on it with another skull over here. And an eyeball. It's got just an eyeball sitting on it. It's so scary. Something that's scarier for its implications rather than its appearance is Laevateinn, the Demon Sword. Laevateinn makes you gain swiftness. You can tap it to give Rezzard +2, make Rezzard deal +200 damage with that turn. You can banish a Resonator to recover it, so if you keep bringing out your Persephones, you can keep tapping this to untap it, keep gaining buffs. You can clear whip Persephones to let your Rizas come out, because Riza can't trigger if you have anything else on the board. It's just a very good multi-purpose tool. Let's see if I can speak today. That really helps out. And you can give your Rezzard imperishable if by some chance he loses it and can gain it back, which is definitely interesting. And you can use it to produce fire if you have multiple of them. This is just fine. And then the last 2 regalia you play are 2 Interdimensional Vessel Apollo. Your Jade Ruler gains flying. This means that if you target down something with Rezzard, your opponent cannot block with anything else if it doesn't have flying. So you can target down rested Resonators, kill them with Rezzard, and take control of them if you want them. It's pretty good. And you also use it to... you don't use it for the Moon Tap ability, really, because you have nothing that triggers off of it. But the last thing is that you can tap it, banish it, return something to your hand. This is another way to clear the board to make sure that Riza can come out from the chance standby area and start wreaking havoc. So, very good cards. The Regalia package there. 8 Regalia is pretty much the standard number you need for Rulers of Memoria. And then we have a little bit of a mini discard package with 3 Scorn of Dark Alice and 1 Nameless Mist. Again, we don't have a lot of early game in this deck, so knocking out your opponent's aggressive Resonators with Scorn of Dark Alice is really important. Nameless Mist is for just like big cancels, like Seal of Wind and Light, that will prevent your 4-mana plays from going off. So, again, this is a big combo deck. You want to stop your opponent from having things that'll stop your combo. Because we do play red in this deck, we do have the 4 Lightning Strike. Lightning Strike is just a great all-purpose tool to deal with pesky Resonators that are blocking your forward momentum, and to deal less remaining damage to your opponent, because this is a fairly aggressive deck once you start getting your combos going, and if you can do that extra bit of chip damage, Lightning Strike's your best card for that. And then 1 Charlotte's Transformation Magic. Again, the quick cast and Remnant means that this can be played during the player's turn. It can be played from your graveyard, so if you mill it, again, not the end of the world. It's a really nice stun card if you're, again, same way that Scorn of Dark Alice stops your opponent from having early game aggression. You can hit Lancelots with these. They become 4/4 bears and lose their swiftness, so you get a turn to just kind of relax and set up more. Water Transformation Magic is a very, very good card, but isn't really good enough to see more than one of it in this deck at least. So again, play around with the ratios all you want. I only found room for 1 of these. Work with what you got. Again, Remnant's really good, so Space-Time Anomaly is just a phenomenal card. Only 2, just because, again, finding room for a lot of this. The deck space is very tight with the Regalia and the Persephones and the 1-drop engines, so play around with these ratios in the back here. These are all kind of flex spots that you can play to your own preference, but Space-Time makes something lose 5, makes something gain -500, -500, and then you draw a card, which is great, especially if you're cycling through the deck, especially if you're just trying to get to the late game. If you mill these things, it's not the end of the world because they have Remnant. Just very good utility cards to have. And the last couple of one-ofs are 1 Lapis' Darkstorm, a little more discard. Random discard is pretty good. I'm never a huge fan of it just because, knowing my luck, I'm always going to hit the card that doesn't matter, and then they're going to just destroy me with whatever they needed. So it's good, not great. You can move it out for other stuff. And then one Barrier of Shadows. This card is pretty interchangeable. I don't think it's great, and I don't think it's quite good enough to see main deck play, but I had to put in the main deck because this is the Halloween promo art, and what a better way to end this deck profile with our lovely Halloween promo. And that is the entire deck. That's 40 cards. Side deck has not been built yet, because this is kind of just like a funsies deck that I haven't really made for any competitive use. Obvious cards that you can definitely put into this sideboard are Flame Trap, because it works well with stealth. Same with Prison in the Lunar Lake. You can side Melders, more Rizas if you want to just, play the stealth engine, but if that was the case, you wouldn't have been playing the Persephone build, and you probably wouldn't be playing Rezzard either. Other than that, that's pretty much the entirety of the deck. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you give this deck any testing, and how it does. And, yeah. Happy Halloween! Ah.